Good morning and a very warm welcome to Markkleeberg in Germany for round 4 of the 2019 ICF Canoe Slalom World Cup. As I say, we're in Markkleeberg in Germany, just outside Leipzig. This is the third time this course has hosted a World Cup, formerly in 2011 and 2017, and we're back for this as we start to get into the sharp end of the season. The World Cup final next weekend in Prague, and then the World Championships in a month's time with those Olympic qualifiers. But we've had nearly an 8-week break between the third round of the World Cup and this fourth round, so lots of training time to get underway, and we'll see who the form boats are as we get into these semi-finals. Today we've got the men's C1 and then followed by the women's K1. Perfect weather conditions here on this artificial course. Drops 5.2 meters from start to finish across its 270 meter length, and 18 cubic meters of water per second come down the course. That's 18 tons of water per second come down the course. My name is Andy Maddock, and alongside me I'm pleased to welcome Casey Eichfeld, 3-time Olympian from the US Olympic team, and we're going to talk you through this men's canoe semi-final. 30 boats qualified through in from the heats, and they raced today in the reverse order of yesterday's heats, 2-minute intervals, but only 10 boats will go through into the final. That final at 12 o'clock Central European time. Welcome, Casey.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back. I think that I had so much fun in Tots, and I just decided to come join you again.
Well, it's unfortunate you're not in the mix, but we look forward to hearing your insights from paddling on this course. I get the impression the athletes, it's not a regular course on the circuit, but I get the impression the athletes really like paddling here.
Yeah, I've actually enjoyed it considerably. I've competed here for World Cups 3 times now, and actually each time that I've been here the course is different, so it's ever evolving, which is kind of nice. It just, you know, we get kind of used to the same types of water, and it's nice to have something new here and there.
So, of course, we've got new gate sequence for the semi-finals. The athletes haven't had the chance to practice on it. 21 gates set, a new configuration by our course designers Dan Goddard and Michael Trummer. And our first competitor is on course. For Great Britain, it's William Coney. And this is second semi-final. He made the semi-final in Tarzen in Slovenia. So if you're new to the sport of canoe slalom, this great sport, then the rules are pretty simple. It's about negotiating the gates in number order in the fastest possible time. But of course, it's not allowed to, well, you get penalised if you hit the gate. So 2-second penalty if you touch a pole with either part of your body, your boat or your paddle, and a 50-second penalty if you miss a gate or you incorrectly negotiate it. So green and white gates in a downstream direction, red and white gates in an upstream direction. Fast and clean, that's the name of the game.
You got it.
So Will Coney, well, unfortunately picked up a couple of early touches on the top part of the course, but he looks like he's got a rhythm. And from watching the demonstration runners earlier on, I think it's going to be a quick course. I think we're going to be looking towards the 90-second, maybe even under that in this men's C1 event. Well, we're down the bottom part of the course, and my experience of this course is that it's deceptively tiring, and the bottom section is really where you've still got to have some energy in the tank to just deliver some of the technical moves, how it's required to get the fastest lines. So Will Coney now through the last gate, sprinting to the finish, and he'll set the time for the remaining 29 competitors to beat 107.89. That includes those 4 seconds of penalties. And, well, showing his disappointment there. And still 29 competitors to go, but it's fellow British paddler Will Smith, 22-year-old for Great Britain, sets off on his charge. Can he book a place in the final here? He was 5th at the Under-23 Worlds in 2016, and he also made the semi-final in Tarzen. So he has got the ability to deliver when it matters, but this is when it matters. And What's going through the athletes' minds, Casey, in the as they come into that semi-final, particularly perhaps some of the younger, less experienced paddlers on the circuit?
Yeah, so at this point, athletes they're thinking about making sure that they're pushing hard enough. Now at this point, the field is thinned, and it's going to be more difficult to move on to the next round. So they're definitely thinking that they need to keep the speed up, keep off of the gate poles, so they're not acquiring any of those penalties. But there's also still, I think, a small aspect of safety, just making sure that you're not overdoing yourself. You don't want to overstretch yourself, because it's really easy to let that get away from you, and then next thing you know, you're way behind on the clock. You have a bunch of penalties because you're overthinking it too much.
Yeah, that's really good, because you're right, you can try too hard in canoe slalom. And Will Smith, it looks like he's got that balance right. It looks like he has found the groove into the final upstream gate now. So 2 gates stand between him and the finish line. And it's so important to keep your concentration just when you think you've done most of the course. Very easy to almost get ahead of yourself. But Will Smith now crossing the line, and 100.08 seconds. It's a clean run for the paddler from Great Britain. And, well, he'll have to wait and see whether that's enough to make it through to the top 10, because we've got some big names in this race. And, well, we've got a big German shootout as well for their Olympic selection between Sidiris Tassiadis, the world #1, and Franz Anton, who won the second World Cup in Bratislava in Slovakia. So a big battle to come. So next up, representing France, it is Lucas Voisin, who was a silver medalist at the Under-23 World Championships just a few weeks away, 3 or 4 weeks ago, on Krakow in Poland. So he'll be freshly buoyed from that performance, and already up just by a fraction on the early split.
He's running the boat really well. It looks like he's staying on top quite nicely, although it does look to me like he's not quite pulling as hard as he can, and I think that might be why he might not actually be quite as far ahead as I would have expected on that first split. He had an excellent double up at the top, wasting very little time, but again, just not quite pulling. That's a little bit on the edge there. That's kind of the stuff that you want to avoid, because that tends to build in your mind. But he's got a nice big gap here, falling a little bit low into this upright, but there is plenty of time to absorb with his lead.
Well, of course, designers Dan Goddard and Michael Trimmer have really used the water features on this bottom section to make the athletes work hard and test their technical skills.
Wow.
And it looks like Lucas may have just picked up a penalty, yes, confirmed on the final upstream gate 19. But it's a respectable time, and almost certainly will take the lead. It's going to be close. And into first place by just under a second for Lucas Voisin of France. But, still 27 paddlers to go in this men's C1 semi-final. We're live across the weekend here from Markkleeberg in Germany. You can follow all the action. We have the women's K1 to follow on, and then of course finals starting at 12 o'clock Central European time, and then tomorrow we will have in action the women's C1 and the men's K1. But next up for Ireland, it is Jake Cochran, who well, he's chosen to really focus on the World Championships this season. He hasn't raced all the World Cups, and well, he's in a good place. He's made it through into this semi-final. He's had some good performance at junior and under-23 level, and really is targeting, can he secure a place for Ireland at the Olympic Games, and those qualifiers take place at the World Championships in a month's time. But that 2-second penalty won't help his cause in this event.
Yeah, and unfortunately before that 2-second penalty dropped, he was already 2 seconds back on the split, so he's got a lot of work to do. This was a very nice bounce into this upstream, though. We've seen some of the other athletes falling a little bit low into it. Oh, but just a little bit, little tricky action there, but a good save. But now he's a little caught up in the wave because he lost his speed doing that little trick up there. But you know, there's sort of almost always a cost for having to do things to get yourself back online.
Yeah, you could see he just lost that rhythm that he had on the top section, and sometimes you can get it back quite quickly, sometimes you can't, and it does look like he has found that, but is it a little bit too little too late? He's going to be outside the 100-second barrier, and he'll have to see where it puts him in the final reckoning, but at the moment that will put him into third place out of the first 4 competitors down in this competition. So next up, it is representing Australia, Brodie Crawford, who was 13th at the Under-23 World Championships just a few weeks ago. And, well, a bit of an unknown name on the senior circuit, but I'm sure the Australians really an emerging nation in this sport of canoe slalom, and clearly led by the figurehead Jessica Fox, who will be in action in that women's K1 semi-final in around about an hour's time.
So far, very smooth on this on the course thus far. The double up was very nice. He's pretty in touch, only about a half a second down. Brodie's one of the first athletes we've seen in the semifinals that's an athlete who opts to switch rather than using crossbows for some of those more major moves that may not be quite as advantageous on a crossbow. Carrying good speed. I'm curious. Yep, there it is. Going back for the left for this next bit. You can see though a lot of these athletes keep doing this where when they jump that wave there, the bow's kind of coming up in the air a little bit too much, and the stern hits, and they lose that speed, and that's why they're having trouble getting to that upstream quite as nicely. But he's still keeping the movement or the motion and flowing pretty well. Again, with the bow popping up there, you really want to try and avoid that. Anytime that bow's in the air, it means you're not moving forward as fast as you can.
Yeah, flat boat is the name of the game, isn't it, really?
Yep.
To keep it, and it looks like just got a bit deep into the final upstream gate 19, and yeah, that 2-second penalty will compound that. So it is Lucas Voisin of France leading the way in the early stages, ahead of Will Smith for Great Britain, and Brodie Crawford of Australia goes into third place. And at the moment, the lead time 99.11. But I think we can be confident that that will go down into the low 90s. Well, we talked about the battle between the German paddlers, but we've also got a big battle within the Slovak team. We've got Slovenian top paddlers to come. But at the moment, on course, it is Thomas Kirklin of Switzerland, who is looking to book a place in this 10-boat final here at the ICF Canoe Slalom World Cup. It's race number 4. And, well, we have the race final next weekend in Prague, and that's double points. So always a well-attended race and lots at stake. But Kirklin of Switzerland has the early advantage on the top section of the course. A little bit sticky, though, through that downstream sequence.
Yes, a little bit sticky indeed. The down before that first dive is super important to make sure that you're keeping wide, because if you have to use the edge and bring that bow up to get to keep that angle and momentum moving that way, then you're not carrying the speed over quite as well.
Well, he certainly lost as well a lot of his rhythm, but it does seem to pick that up. Great camera footage here from the drone cam, which gives us a great idea of just how offset the gates are on this Markkleeberg course. But the advantage is gone. It's a deficit now, and that offset sequence at the top has cost him time. So Thomas Kirklin of Switzerland, well, he is a 6-time World Cup finalist, so he is capable of getting into the finals, but such are the margins that it doesn't take much to go from hero into zero and miss out on that final. Canoe slalom is a really cruel sport sometimes.
And here's an interesting example of how even in the last third of the course he was still able to pull enough to get himself into the lead. Time changes hand so much in slalom. There's nothing that can be determined until you cross that finish line, and even after then sometimes.
Yeah, and I think Casey's referring to the fact that now there's quite a comprehensive video judging system that just really ensures that there's a fair competition run, but sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. So 6 boats down, and at the moment Thomas Kirkland leading for Switzerland, 98.37, as we watch the second of our Australians, Tristan Carter, on course now. He finished 28th at the Under-23 Worlds a few weeks ago, and missed out on the semi-final at the Tartan World Cup, the third World Cup of the season, back in the end of June.
And Tristan seems to be another athlete that we have here that is also opting for the switch. Actually, the second Australian athlete, so I wonder if Jess Fox has had a little bit of an influence on these boys. I believe they're one of the other C1s, Dan Watkins, is also a regular switcher.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it, how you would say that the men's C1 would be very adamant that you don't switch for the last, certainly for the last 15, 20 years. But the women's C1 have really influenced that tide of change that, as you suggest, is starting to happen. And even the top boats, particularly when it comes into really technical moves, are considering the switch.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Tristan Carter now entering the final 2 gates on this 21-gate course. Sun's shining here. Perfect day for racing and very little wind. Run for Tristan Carter, 98.93. Thomas Kirkland leads for Switzerland ahead of Tristan Carter of Australia. Lucas Razin of France in 3rd place. Remember, it's the 30 boats racing in the semi-final. They're racing in reverse order of yesterday's heats. And, well, here's a name to watch, Nicolas Guestin. And he's really an emerging talent, not just in the canoe, but in the kayak as well, for France. So, under-23 world champion of this year, and the European under-23 champion this year. Junior World Championship bronze medalist last year, and he made the final at the 3rd World Cup of this season.
Just getting that bow stuck a little bit on the curler, entering into the second dive gate.
So he's in touch on the early split, and importantly on this top section, keeping it clean is important. And then, how sticky does this corner section feel, Casey? It's the flattest part of the course.
You know, it's really funny. It's quite deceptive as the wah falling quite low there. And this is kind of where I was talking about. Just not getting a good bounce or jump over that hole can be quite costly and causing you to fall rather low into that upstream, even though it's a fairly straightforward move. Once you're about halfway down the course, you really start to feel the burn. You're starting to feel a little more exhaustion, and it's super important to make sure that you're placing the boat and your strokes really well.
Does it help you to recompose if you've had a little bit of a tricky top section? Does it help you to recompose as you come into the technical bottom section?
You know, that corner is very tricky, and a lot of times it requires a good bit of power. So it's not moving super fast, and the boils in it are very weird, and so you always have to be very attentive still in there. It's not a moment when you can think, oh, okay, I can take a breath and sort of just reset. It requires you to stay on top of it the entire way through.
That's a good point. Yeah. The boils, everyone's enemy in a boat. They can just come up from nowhere and take you offline. But into 4th place for Nicolas Guestin of France, and really tight at the top. The top 4 separated by just 0.77 of a second. So next up, it is Gregor Hedvig of Poland, and, well, not a great start there with a penalty on the downstream gate 1.
He is attacking very nicely, though. Had a good cross from 3 to 4.
Yeah, and he has been really fast this season, particularly in the qualifying rounds.
Yeah, very nice first spin there. He placed himself very well in the down. Oh, but unfortunately, just not paying quite enough attention to where the paddle shaft was.
So 2.5 seconds the deficit, and I suspect that won't include the second penalty. So up against it now for Gregor Hedvig, who, as I say, has had some good results this season. 8th at the second World Cup, 16th at the first World Cup, and again another final in
nice
World Cup
there.
3.
So that was the epitome of what you're looking for.
So he has had a consistent season of delivering in semi-finals. Probably still a little bit learning around the delivery in the finals, but at the moment it's looking like he may struggle to make it through into the 10-boat final here.
Wow.
And he will with that last 10, that extra penalty there. Just pushed offline and also takes a low route into the final upstream gate 19. It's not going to happen today for Gregor Hedvig of Poland as he paddles out the run. And, well, it is still Thomas Kirklin of Switzerland leading as Gregor Hedvig goes into 7th place for Poland. So you can see the women's kayak paddlers will be very much watching this early part of the competition as they prepare for their runs, and they get underway at just after 10 o'clock Central European time. So in around about 40 minutes time. But let's stay focused on this men's C1 semi-final as Jose Carvalho of Portugal is on course, finalist at the Olympic Games in Rio de Janeiro 2016. And well, starting to come to form at the right kind of time as we emerge towards Olympic qualification again for Tokyo 2020. Certainly looking smooth. 1.35 down on the early split though, so he's going to have to make sure he finds the sweet spot on these next few gates. Well, Portugal not really known as a big white water nation, big on the canoe sprint and marathon racing, but certainly great to see the countries emerging from you know, starting to develop the sport, some structure, some knowledge in their countries, and then be able to compete on the world stage and hopefully qualify through places at the Olympic Games.
Yeah. Looks like Jose picked up a little bit of time in that middle section, but it's going to be really important that he holds that together for the last bit. You can see that he's definitely got very little left in the tank, and he just needs to make sure that he uses every last ounce of energy. He is chasing a clock that is just a little too far away, I think.
Yeah, unfortunately, you can see he just got pushed around a little bit from the downstream 18 into the last upstream and into 6th place. It's a clean run for Jose Carvalho of Portugal, but unlikely to be enough to make it through into the final later on today. 10 boats, of course, will qualify. The top 10 will then race it off in reverse order in that final. And next up, for the Czech Republic, it's Thomas Rack. Well, no stranger to this kind of competition. World Championship finalist last year in Rio de Janeiro. Finished 8th in that competition and hasn't had perhaps the same kind of season as he has before. But, well, this is an opportunity to restart his season. As I know there's a few paddlers. A good example would be the Olympic champion, Denis Gargaud-Canoe, who has had a shocking season up to this point and is definitely looking to come back to the second part of the season, having pressed the reset button and deliver. He'll be in action very shortly. Well, Thomas Rack now is 2.38 down on the split, so not quite finding the time at the top section, and at the moment the time's not as low as I thought they might be, Casey.
Yeah, I think that what we've seen is maybe it's a little unusual is the demo boat actually really put together a very quick run, very tidy, and not that that's totally out of the norm, but a lot of times the athletes that are on the demo crew aren't athletes that are on the team, so they might not be quite as quick as the athletes that we'll see racing. Just a little bowberry there for Thomas, and now he is just chasing that clock. This last little move is kind of deceptive, crossing that eddy line. It's very important about keeping the boat in a good neutral position, because you want to try and glide on top of it as much as you can. If you see that bow start coming up, you're losing a lot of time and requiring a lot more energy.
Yeah, and you can see the margins now, because just 1.3 seconds down on the race lead, but only into 5th place for Thomas Rack of the Czech Republic. So Thomas Kirkelin leading for Switzerland with 19 boats still to go. Tristan Carter second for Australia. Lucas Hazard of France in third at the moment. And well, next up is the winner of the last World Cup race in Tarsen in Slovenia. It is Roberto Colazingardi of Italy. But he's already washed away. Good recovery there, but lost some time on that top section.
That's a bit of a difficult cross there when you're having to go to the direction of your crossbow. The water there is very fast, and that wave, unless you're pointed upstream, is very difficult to surf. As soon as the bow falls, the speed of the water just carries you down. He did a great job of saving it, and so now he's just going to be looking to get that back.
Well, he's not out of it at this stage, but he's going to have to produce something special on the bottom section. And, well, the Italian team in that World Cup 3, they produced something special, didn't they? 3 out of the 4 gold medals went to Italy. They had their day. What can they do here in the next World Cup of the season? Because, yes, it was Colazingardi. He won the C1 men's. Then the Stephanie Horn of Italy won the women's K1. And it was Giovanni De Gennaro that took the men's K1 title. So the Italians were on form at the last World Cup, but that was 8 weeks or so ago. Now it is all back into sharpening up, really ready for the World Championships and the World Cup final. But Roberto Colazingardi now coming towards the finish line. It is going to be a competitive time, hampered by that 2-second penalty, but only into 8th for the winner from the last World Cup race. So Kirklin of Switzerland sitting at the top of the leaderboard, 98.37. That is the time to chase. Of Spain, who has been on the circuit for a long time, very experienced, be looking forward to a home World Championships in a month's time, and a 3-time Olympian with some well, pretty awesome results. 4th and 8th across his Olympic career, many finals, and well, what can he do today? That won't help him. A penalty at the top of the course on the downstream K6, just the slightest of touch on the paddle shaft. So easy to do when you've actually delivered a move pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many things to be aware of when you're out there. Not only just the water and what the boat is doing, but again, what your body's doing. I mean, the paddle is all over the place, trying to just make sure that you're getting as much leverage as you can, to be pulling as hard as you can, and sometimes in those moments you just lose track of where that paddle shaft is, where your top hand is, and you punch a gate, and then you're just kicking yourself, because a lot of times that's all that separates you from what your next goal was.
Well, it's interesting because Ander has really cut that deficit on the middle section there. So he was 3.4 seconds down on the top. He's now just over half a second down. So can Ander recover this? Can he take the race lead?
Moved the boat very nicely around the corner and up to this point. That last couple of gates before those downs was just a little bit slow, but it looks like he's going to do it. Very nice.
Nice, into first place. So that just shows that there is some time in this course for sure. He didn't have the best of top sections, but he used his experience and he built on that momentum. Ander Elosegui takes the race lead for Spain, and that includes a 2-second penalty, so 97.17 total. We can see that the times are starting to come down. Well, next up for the Czech Republic, Wojciech Heger, a young paddler who was 10th, so he made the final in the second World Cup of this season in Bratislava, Slovakia. 28th in the first World Cup of the season in Lee Valley, Great Britain. So young paddler, but you know that, well, if he's made it onto the Czech team, he's got credibility, and another switcher we see. So there you can see Wojciech just switching the blade to optimize the line here. And look at that, 2.84 seconds. He has found time on the top.
It's all about moving that boat as well as you can, just trying to avoid as much impact with the waves as possible. A little bit of trouble there coming into gate 10. Opting for a little bit of a wider line, getting to the left of that ledge there.
Well, that helps him get a run of the boat, doesn't it? And open up the line from this move into the upstream gate 12.
Yep. And you can see from that aerial view as they come around that corner, there is a good bit of steering involved, making sure that that boat is going where you want it to go, because that water will pull you away very quickly.
Well, it's interesting because the advantage is gone now for Wojciech, but he is in touch with our current race leader from Spain, Ander Elosegui, and that reflects really just how good Ander was on the bottom section. But a penalty there on the downstream 18 won't help his cause. Remember, we've still got 16 boats to go after Wojciech in this semi-final, and they were the fastest in the heats. We've got some big names still to come. So into 10th place, and that early advantage on the top section all fell away on the bottom section for Wojciech Heger of the Czech Republic. So Elosegui leads for Spain, Kirklin of Switzerland in second, still Carter of Australia in third place as we get towards the halfway point of this, the ICF Canoe Slalom World Cup 4 semi-final. 30 boats racing for just 10 places in the final. Great Britain's Tom Abbott now on course. So he's a two-time under-23 World Championship finalist. And, well, he qualified really well at the Bratislava World Cup, fourth in that qualification race. Will this be his opportunity to make his first Senior World Cup final? Well, he's got a good advantage on the top section, but he's got to hold on to that. Was that a penalty, or was that a water splash?
No, I'm pretty sure that was a penalty. Just a little bit of the bow popping up underneath of it. He pulled himself off the wave just a little bit too early. I think he was going for the direct, panicked for a moment, and went for the spin. But then he was so low on it. Although they don't seem to have seen it, so maybe it was just a water touch.
So if you're not quite familiar with the rules, then clearly if you touch the pole with any part of your paddle or your body or your boat, then it's penalised. But if you splash it with the water, then that's not penalised.
Yep. It actually seems to me like our visual of the timing system is frozen up a little bit, so they maybe actually do have that penalty.
That's a good point, Casey. So as we watch, then I think Tom has picked up a 2-second penalty. You can see it swinging in the background, but it's a respectable run. He's still got the rhythm. Will it be enough as he comes down towards the final two gates? Sticky move there.
Wow, you can see those reserves. There you go. Come on, accelerate.
Yeah, just not quite got the acceleration at the bottom part of the course. Tom Abbott crosses the line for Great Britain and just waiting for confirmation of his result. To hear the temperature starting to warm up, and the action very much getting really focused as we get towards finals. Those take place at 12 o'clock Central European time. You can follow them live on Planet Canoe. And I think actually if you're within Europe, you may have to wait until after the live broadcast on Eurosport, but it will be available as soon as the live broadcast is done. But anywhere else in the world, then it will be live. 12 o'clock Central European time, the men's C1 final, and that'll be immediately followed by the women's K1 final. So there's confirmation the race has stopped just temporarily because of a technical issue. So we shall wait and see. But well, whilst we just paused there, Casey, we've got some big names to come, haven't we, in this men's C1 semi-final. We've got 4 world champions. We've got the likes of, we've got the 3 Slovaks, Martikan, Benush and Slavkovsky, who are battling it out for that dominance and that Olympic place. We've got Denis Gargaud-Chanou, the Olympic champion from France, who is, well, has had a really, really slow and disappointing season so far, but I think this that 8-week break might have been good for Denis. We'll have to wait and see. And then we've got the big German battle, and clearly we've got the Slovenians in there as well. Who would you pick for? Who's going to take the top 3 in this semi-final?
Oh wow, that's a tricky question. You know, it's funny that you mentioned this because leading into this World Cup, I was asking around when I'd see athletes, "Oh, are you going to Leipzig? Are you going to Leipzig?" And no, we're gonna skip it and go straight to Prague and train a little bit. And I was like, oh my gosh, this isn't gonna be a very well attended World Cup. And then I get here, and the numbers are a little bit lower indeed, but the density is intense. majority of the best are here. So even though there's fewer numbers, it's not that easy to move forward, and so it's been fun to watch, and I think that we'll definitely see some really great racing. Like you said, the Germans are be battling it out. This is kind of home course for Franz, and Tasiadis is clearly very capable on this course. Markkleeberg was on the medal podium last time he was here.
And that really excites me, actually, the fact that Mikael Markkleeberg, that many of us, probably including me, had sort of written off in terms of ever seeing him on the top step of a podium again, is actually really starting to come back and feature in that Olympic selection process for Slovakia, but also, he's starting to threaten the podium again.
Yeah,
really exciting.
It's interesting because even though some may see that it looks like things are slowing down for him, his slowed down version is still regular finals.
Well, that's a good point.
It's kind of a dream, I think.
Well, don't go away, because I've just heard, we are going to be underway in just under 2 minutes' time. So it was a bit of a timing issue, but we will be back underway in just under 2 minutes of time. So don't go away. But let's just reflect on that. So soon up we'll have Franz Anton of Germany, who won the second World Cup and, of course, is the world champion from 2018. We've got Denis Canoe of France, the Olympic champion. He's a world champion. Mikael Markkleeberg, the legend, who is a 5-time Olympic medalist and 4-time world and European champion, I think. But we've also got Benjamin Savcek, a world champion. Alexander Slavkovsky. Sinuis Tasiadis, the world #1 of Germany. He goes off last, being the fastest from the heats. So I really think there's going to be huge competition for places in this 10-boat final later today. So at the moment it is Ander Elosegui of Spain leading the way, 97.17, but I think we're going to get down into the early 90s for the winner of this semi-final as they play the mind games as well, ready for the final. So Casey, I just talked about mind games. How important is it to lay one down in the semi-final? Do you think it starts to help with the mind games, or does it not faze anyone?
I'm not sure if it phases the others so much. I think, if anything, the athlete themselves benefits from it. It's nice to feel very capable. It builds that confidence, and that's ultimately what we really need, because we're all very capable paddlers, and that confidence is really helpful in feeling good out there and holding your focus together. I think all athletes go through periods of time where they don't feel quite as confident, and it might show in their racing. So it's important to find that confidence wherever you can.
That's a good point, because canoe slalom is a lot about confidence, isn't it? And because I'd say, yes, it's a hugely physical sport, it's a hugely technical sport, but actually a lot of it's the mental skills and the ability to make quick decisions, isn't it? And if you've got the confidence to commit to a move and maybe react to the water, then that's what really finds the margins.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, on course, Ondřej Berčič of Slovenia just being pushed around as he tries to run into the upstream 12. And early penalty. Well, he's a 2-time World Cup winner, and he was on the podium, actually. Silver medal in the last World Cup in Tarsen on his home water in Slovenia.
He had a great start, almost 3 seconds up on the first split, but then immediately followed that up with a penalty, and then just a little bit of line trouble, not getting to the ups quite as effectively as he would have liked. This is smooth down here, though, looking nice, but I think unfortunately at this point it's just a little bit too late.
Yeah, unfortunately, Ondřej Berčič of Slovenia, not going to follow up the podium, I don't think, on this occasion, outside the final, in 11th place. And I should just say that Thomas Abbott is in 13th place, so he was the last one down just when we had that little technical problem with the timing system. We didn't have his result, but into 13th place. So Elosegui still leading for Spain. Well, we look at our next Italian boat, Raffaello Ivaldi, on course now. And he has made his name on the under-23 world and European stage. We know he's very fast and is part of a group of young men's canoe athletes coming out of Italy. But can he pull it together and deliver a result good enough for the top 10 and a place in that 10-boat final? So we'll get an indication very shortly. Well, he's up, 2.5 seconds up on the split. But we've seen a lot of people do that early on, but not manage to hold on to that.
It was a very nice bounce into the upstream 10. It's kind of difficult to get a nice clean line through that wave train and into that upstream. And we've seen a lot of people, a lot of times the bow's coming up in the air, they're losing speed, not carrying that momentum in. This is also a pretty decent jump. Bow came up a little bit, but he transitioned the speed well. Little pump here.
Looks very composed,
yes.
Doesn't it? And super line there into the upstream gate 15. He's got the advantage. It has been trimmed a little bit, but we know Elisegi, the race leader, was so strong on the bottom section. So it's this critical move now, 18 to 19. You have to stay wide. You have to stay close to the outside pole on 18. And we've seen a few touches on there, but no problem there for Ivaldi of Italy.
A little bounce over here. Now this is where it all comes down to.
Digging deep, finding those energy reserves. The time is ticking away, but it is into second place for Raffaello Ivaldi of Italy. And it is still Elisegi of Spain leading, now Ivaldi of Italy in second place. Kirklin of Switzerland in third. And, well, that sprint to the finish seems ever so long.
Oh, yes, absolutely, especially with that cross across that eddy. You know, it's very dead water, and it's sapping at that low energy reserve that you have left at the bottom.
Well, next Kasper Stuber of Poland, who is a former junior world champion, but also fourth at the under-23 world championships just a few weeks ago. He's had a good season this season, but he hasn't yet made the final.
Very nice double up there, looking very smooth so far.
3 results in the teens in semi-finals, so he's very close to the finals. And he too has an advantage on the top section.
This was very smooth all through this. Opting for a little bit more of a direct line, but he did get a fairly clean line, just a tiny bit low into 10, but that's not really an issue. Going for the right line down this drop. And you can see he's kind of in the heady just a little bit, but it doesn't seem to have been an issue.
Well, let's watch as he comes into the upstream gate 12, sneaks round and out. This is where the lactic acid will start to be digging in, but he has picked up a 2-second penalty. Without that, he would still have the advantage over Elisegi of Spain. Now jumping through into this critical move, 18 to 19. Very dry line there.
This is nice, very smooth.
But
another penalty. Oh, I see it now, swinging.
Yeah, he's taking it on the inside pole, the river left pole, but that will be expensive. And you can see, without that, he would be really in contention for a place in the final. But only 7th place, 99.66. But a quick time there, 95 seconds, a raw time and a name to watch.
I'd like to see the penalty on gate 13. I completely missed that one.
Yeah, I have to say, I didn't see it either. So, well, this is what the home crowd are waiting to see. It is Franz Anton, the world champion of 2018, battling it out to keep the Olympic selection process alive, because he needs to beat Sidiris Tassiadis still to race in this semi-final in order to keep his hopes of going to the Tokyo 2020 Olympic Games. He won the second World Cup of the season in Bratislava, and he's a hugely popular athlete on the circuit.
Wow. Yeah, very nice double up. Just a little bit of time loss there in that down just above, but still almost a 3-second lead. Opting for 2 spins.
Yeah, you wonder whether, he knows he's going to be fast enough, whether he'll wait and let do the talking in the final maybe. Just make sure he does it safe, doesn't take too many risks in the semi-final, because he did have a big paddle back yesterday. He had to go back and do a gate in the heats on the first run. Still made it through, but that's why he's probably not going quite as late on in this semi-final as we might expect.
Nice little pump there.
Well, he has found the advantage, and no one has got to this stage in the course against Elisegi with that kind of advantage. 2.24, and Franz Anton of Germany has found the groove. Can he keep it going for the last few gates? Well, that's outstanding from 18 to 19. Certainly this course he would count as his home course.
Wow, just a little caught up there. Now he's really got to push it, but I think that he's going to cross with a fairly decent lead. Yep.
Well, the lead has been eroded, but into first place for Franz Anton of Germany. And, well, that almost certainly good enough for the final. We'll have to wait a minute or so because we've still got more than 10 boats to come down. But Franz Anton of Germany takes the race lead. So Ander Elisegi down to second place for Spain. And Raffaello Ivaldi of Italy is currently in third. So next up, well, it's Zach Locken of the United States. That was what he was up to in the break between the third World Cup and this World Cup 4.
So far, fairly solid. Just a little bit caught up on the eddy line there into 4. And a little bit caught up there.
So based in Durango in Colorado, is that right?
Yeah, well, that's where he's from, but he's based in Charlotte, North Carolina, along with me and Michał Smolin.
So, yeah, that's where he learned his trade. I remember racing there a long, long time ago. In a champion series, they were a great series in the United States. Well, he has picked up that 2-second penalty on the downstream gate 8.
Nice push there into this upstream, though. You know, just like we've seen with some of the other athletes, there is time to be gained in the bottom, and so a little bit of a touch is not too much of an issue.
But it's slipping away, 5.71. And and a penalty, just trying to rush the exit at 15. So tempting, particularly when you know you're chasing a bit of time.
Yeah. I know for me personally, interesting.
Well, a 50-second penalty now showing on the downstream gate 7 for Zach. And, whilst the athletes will have the opportunity to protest if there's any doubt about it, then almost certainly with those penalties, it won't be a place in the final anyway for Zach Locken on this occasion. Into 20th place. And disappointment for the young paddler from the United States of America.
Wow. I don't understand that 50. I want to look at that too.
Yeah. Well, you can do that. You can follow it. You can review it on the Planet Canoe live stream. You can go back and look at stuff. You can look at the archive of stuff on the YouTube channel as well. As next up, it is Stefano Cipresi of Italy, the third Italian in this semi-final. And, well, we are into the final 10 boats, so we will start to confirm who is into the final. That final, 12 o'clock Central European time. And it'll be live, but a little bit delayed for European fans. If you want to watch it live, it is live on Eurosport 2, I believe. So Stefano Cipresi, well, he's a pioneer of the switching, and who was a bit of a lone voice, really, for a long time, switching away.
And I imagine that came from his kayak background. Having been a very, very capable kayaker before switching to the C1, I think that makes a big difference for a paddler if they're already comfortable on both sides. You know, for C1s that have been traditionally on paddling on one side for a long time, it's really hard to make that switch. It takes a lot of time and effort. And so there's a balance. You know, you have to decide if it's worth to spend time training on another side and taking away training on the side that you're very comfortable with.
Yeah, of course he was 2006 world champion in the kayak, but since then he has been focused on this men's C1 event, and 2.3 second the deficit on the 2/3 of the way down split. It's not going to take the race lead, but it's going to be close.
Yeah, it was a very competitive time. Actually, very good with including that penalty that he had.
Yeah, 97.44, and into 4th place. But it is Franz Anton of Germany who is confirmed as our first qualifier. And, well, that'll be a big relief for him in his own little private battle with Sidiris Tassiadis, because you've got to be in it, haven't you? You've got to get through to the next stage, then you can race it out. But here is a big name in the sport. Denis Canoe of France, the Olympic champion from Rio 2016. He's a world champion in this sport, but his season so far has, been very disappointing by his standards. And I know he was experimenting with a different boat. He's now gone back to his old boat, and he's hoping that will help him to find that rhythm again.
Yep. Was looking very composed on the first 5 to 6 gates. Just a little bit hung up there in that offset there. But again, there's time to be gained all throughout the course.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. He's obviously the Olympic champion, but he's got a lot of young talent coming out in France that may well be challenging him for that Olympic spot. Now looking very smooth as he comes in towards the upstream gate 12, but he can't afford to let the time get away from him. 2.94. He's getting into risky territory now as he approaches the bottom section. He can't really afford any more line errors or mistakes.
Yeah.
At the moment, 2.9 seconds down off the race leader would actually put him in 7th place. So he needs to find some time on the last few gates.
This last move was very nice. He can keep his speed moving well through here. Still might be in touch, but it's going to be pretty close.
Well, it's deceptive because he has found a bit of time, but only into 6th place. And the Olympic champion is, he's going to have a long wait over the next few minutes to see if that is enough. 6th place, and only 10 boats in that final. And we still have 8 boats to come. But that's good news for Ander Elosegui of Spain, who joins Franz Anton in this afternoon's final. Next up for Slovenia, it's Luka Božič, who is actually leading the World Cup standings for 2019 after the first 3 races. 4th at Lee Valley, and consistently performing, hence the World Cup leader. 9th at the World Championships last year in Rio. And he's always an exciting paddler to watch and really consistent, and there he's got the advantage on the top.
Yeah, you can see he's been very aggressive. He's been moving the boat well, keeping it quite dry so far. I really like watching Luka paddle. He's one of those exciting athletes that transitioned out of his longtime C2 and into the C1, and has really proven himself as a solo canoeist.
Indeed, a bit like you, really. You know, you've done your C2 and C1, and then you've specialised in your C1, and had some outstanding results. I think your best result, 4th, is it, at the World Championships?
For the World Championships, yep. I'll be looking to hopefully find that again. Wow, he's lost quite a bit of time there. I'm surprised it's quite so much, but he did have a little bit of trouble getting hung up in the offsets just around that corner.
It's interesting because, he was up on Franz Anton's time at the top, but that clearly shows Franz had a good middle section, because Luka doesn't seem to have done too much wrong on his run. And now approaching the finish line. Well, it's going to be a good time, and has he found the time on the bottom? It's going to be close, and surely that is the race lead. It is.
Oh.
In fact, it's a dead heat.
It is.
So it is first equal at the moment, 96.06 seconds. Luka Božič of Slovenia provisionally into first equal, because I have to say there is an asterisk showing, and that just means that there's still a video review ongoing. So let's watch Michal Martikan of Slovakia, now 40 years old, legend of the sport, 5-time Olympic medalist, 2-time Olympic champion, and really starting, as we were talking about in that little break in proceedings, really starting to rediscover the vintage Martikan.
He's just such an impressive athlete to watch. He's been paddling very smoothly so far.
And the hunger definitely hasn't faded.
Oh, yes.
Fearsome competitor, and look, he's in touch on the top split. It'll be really interesting to see whether Michal will actually end up going to his 6th Olympic Games. He's got to qualify, and that's not going to be an easy achievement to do that. He's got to beat Mate Benos and Alexander Slavkovsky in order to do that. Both accomplished athletes, but Mardikan looking so smooth.
That was incredibly smooth. I was a little worried for him for a moment. It looked like he was maybe too far away for the jump, and then just totally destroyed it. Just a little bit low there, though. Probably going to lose that advantage that he had.
Yeah, 0.63 up, but you're right. He buried the bows a little bit on that move into the upstream 15, but no problem as he comes into the last upstream gate 19.
Very nice.
Mikhail Martikan is on track to book his place in the final. The only question, and I don't think it is a question now, is it going to take the lead? Surely it will.
Yeah, obliterated. Look at that. Oh, my goodness.
Wow. Mikhail Martikan has announced his return. That as well, I almost think that was vintage. He took his foot off the pedal towards the end there. He knew he'd done enough.
It's kind of crazy to watch him. I mean, honestly, his style itself, it doesn't look like he's moving that much. And then all of a sudden, you see the time, you're like, wait, what just happened? I don't understand.
So Martikan leads for Slovakia, and Franz Anton is second for Germany, then second equal Bozic of Slovenia. And at the moment, Denis Gargaud-Canoe of France, the Olympic champion, lying in 8th place with still a number of boats to go. And on course, Mate Benos of Slovakia, the Olympic silver medalist from Rio 2016, and a fearsome competitor. In fact, he was on the podium in Bratislava. He's had some pretty strong results this year, but actually 17th at the last World Cup. So he's 5th at the first World Cup, 2nd in the second World Cup, and then 17th. So he'll want to prove that was just a blip. Well, at the early split, he was a second down on compatriot Mikhail Mardikan. As he comes down, such a different style really to Mikhail Mardikan, such a different body type.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So, Mate Benos is towering. I don't know how tall he is, but he's tall. And Mikhail Mardikan, really short, really compact, but hugely powerful.
Yeah, and it looks like a 3.5 second deficit in the second split, so he's got some work to do for sure.
Yeah, I mean, that'd still be good enough for the final, but you're right. Mate Benos really will want to be showing that he can compete with his compatriot Mikhail Mardikan as he comes down towards the finish. He's going to be outside of that lead time, and he's starting to get into the danger territory, around 7th place there. So Mate Benos of Slovakia, and we still have 5 boats to go in this semi-final, so he's in the danger zone. But at the moment, Mikhail Mardikan of Slovakia, Franz Anton of Germany, Luka Bozic of Slovenia, and Elisegi of Spain, and now Raffaello Ivaldi of Italy are confirmed into the final. 5 to go, and Benjamin Savcek, the 2017 world champion, is on course for Slovenia.
Looking smooth so far.
Does indeed. Hugely consistent paddler again. He took I think it was 2 silver medals in the World Championships before he finally got his first world title, and he's normally there or thereabouts, and he's up on the split, and that is good, because it was a good split from Mikhail Mardikan on the top.
Right, absolutely. That is a big advantage to have found in just the first 7 gates.
So Benny Savcek had disappointment really on his home course at the 3rd World Cup. He finished 4th. You could say that's a pretty credible result, but I know that was what he wanted in front of his home crowd. But
still keeping it very, very smooth. He's not getting too exaggerated with the movements of the boat, keeping things moving. Oh, just a dumb bow touch there for him on the outside pole of that upstream.
Yeah, you're right. He was looking very composed, not taking any risks, but now suddenly he's got to make sure that he doesn't slip out the back end of this top 10.
Yep. But one of the amazing things about him is I've seen him earn a spot on the podium with 3 touches. So a touch for Benny Savcek does not mean a whole lot.
Yeah, it's a quick time actually. Look at that time. It's going to be outside the race lead, but into second place with a 2-second penalty. Well, that shows it. So that's I'm just looking at the time here, 3.21, the fastest time of the day so far. And that means that Denis Gargaud-Canoe of France is currently sitting in 10th place with 4 boats to go. So high risk there for the Olympic champion of not making it into the final. Same with Mate Benus in 8th place with 4 to go. Lucas Rohan of the Czech Republic, the last of 3 Czech paddlers now on the course. And, well, the time 94.52 is the time to take the race lead, but he'll be more focused on the time of 97.55 because a time inside that will get him a place in the final. He's lying 8th in the World Cup standings after the first 3 World Cups of the season, and he's up on the split. But has he just cancelled that out with that 2-second penalty?
I would say so, and then some, unfortunately. That advantage was not quite great enough to absorb a 2-second penalty.
Well, we've just seen with Benny Savsek that you can still incorporate that 2-second penalty and book a place in the final, but it does need a bit of a class paddle on this bottom section.
Letting his weight fall back behind him just a little bit there. Killed some of that momentum that was really crucial in driving into that upstream. Ooh, opting for the switch.
He's done the switch, but almost too tight there. In and out of the upstream. Now into the last few gates on this course.
And there's one of the disadvantages of switching is it's got to be planned very well, because when that paddle is out of the water, you don't have anything to control you. And it cost him, and he ran right into that gate.
Well, I think that's unfortunately going to be bad news for our competitors from the Czech Republic. Lukáš Rohan, who will cross the line in 22nd place. And, well, that's good news for Stefano Cipresi of Italy, who is our next qualifier. Italy, so far with 2 boats into the final. And that's, well, that's a good result. But... and that leaves Denis Gargaud-Canoe still with a lifeline. 3 to go in this World Cup 4 semi-final of the men's C1 competition. And here's the young talent coming out of Spain, Miquel Trave. He's a 2-time junior world champion. First time someone's done it in the men's event in the kayak and the canoe in the same year. That was in 2018. 6th at the Under-23 World Championships this year. And, well, he's in touch on that early split. Looking very smooth as he comes down through into the upstream gate 10. Whips it round, but looks like a touch. Yeah, confirmed there, just too tight. The important thing for this young paddler is that he stays composed. He doesn't panic with that penalty.
Absolutely.
And ducking and diving through into the upstream gate 15. A little bit chasing it back, but that might help him on the exit. So don't forget, we'll be up next with the women's K1 immediately after the men's C1 semi-final, but we're really getting into the sharp end of racing. Michal Martikan of Slovakia has announced his return in a big way after the, you could say, the summer recess, the summer break. He is our race leader at the moment, and only into 16th place for Miguel Trave of Spain. So disappointment there, but that is good news for Mate Benus of Slovakia, who will make it in to the final after that, well, disappointing by his standards, run in the semi-final. 2 to go, and next up, Alexander Slavkovsky of Slovakia. 3-time European champion, 2-time, I think, off the top of my head, World Cup Series winner. Very, very consistent paddler. And we'd expect him to take the challenge to Michal Martikan. That time, 94.52, is the time to beat. But to make it into the final, he needs to beat 98.37. Well, he's up on the split so far. So he's the reigning World Cup champion, lying 5th at the moment in the standings after 3 races.
So far, very smooth and keeping the boat moving very nicely. Definitely can see the control as he's pushing through each of the wave trains. Very nice push there into the upstream.
So can he hold on to the advantage that he had on the top section? Just not a lot to choose between the two. Slovakia against Slovakia for the race lead here. And still holding a very slender advantage. Alexander just looks so fluid, so at home on the course actually. He doesn't look like he's forcing this at all.
Yeah, very nice glide from the downstream to the last upstream there. Still moving the boat nicely. Now it's just time to pour on the power.
Surely we're looking at the new race leader now.
I think so.
We are indeed. 0.37 the advantage. It is Alexander Slavkovsky into the final in first place, ahead of Michal Martikan of Slovakia, Benjamin Savcek of Slovenia. So one boat to go. It's the fastest boat from the heats yesterday. But the news is that Denis Gargot-Canoe of France is out of the final, the Olympic champion. That's a big shock.
A little jittery. Excited to see what time Tassiadis can throw down.
So this is the world number one for Germany. Sidiris Tassiadis is Olympic silver medalist from London 2012. And yeah, he was quick yesterday. And this is their Olympic selection. If he can beat Franz Anton in this race, in the final, and then he will be the German boat going to the games. So double performance pressure on him, but equally will he raise his game. 1.29 the advantage, and he just a bit sticky through that section, but no real problems.
He has so much power. Even when you think that he's about to start slowing down, all of a sudden the boat re-accelerates.
And of course, we've not really seen Sidiris race since the first World Cup of the season, which he won in Lee Valley. So, you know, he's really been focusing on his preparations for the World Championships, his Olympic selection, and so all focus will have been on this race. He's a little bit down, but he's absolutely in touch with a place in the final, and that's the job. Is basically he needs to make sure he's in the final alongside Franz Anton, and it will all go down to the wire. And of course, that final 12 o'clock Central European time will be live here on Planet Canoe and on Eurosport, and it may be delayed in Europe just until the end of the Eurosport transmission. But Sidiris Tassiadis into fourth place. He does the job. He's into the final. So Alexander Slavkovsky takes the provisionally the race win in this semi-final. He'll go off last in the final. That final starts at midday Central European time. Michal Martikan second, Benjamin Savcek in third for Slovenia. Then joining him, it'll be Sidiris Tassiadis, Franz Anton, Luka Bozic, Ander Elisegi, Raffaello Ivaldi, Stefano Cipresi, and Mate Benos of Slovakia. So, well, that was only the semi-final. And I think there'll be a bit more time, we'll find. What do you think? What do you think is going to be the winning time in the final? 94.15 was the time in the semis.
I don't know. We'll see. You know, there was a lot of really smooth paddling out there, but I didn't see anybody go what I would consider flawlessly. There's definitely time to be had here and there. A lot of times you'd see the bow dragging in the water a little more than it needed to. There's a couple tenths of a second. A lot of times just a little bit too low into an upstream or a little bit too high into an upstream and just kind of inhibiting your ability to exit well to the next offset. So if they can really hold those types of moves together, then I think that we could see maybe someone pushing 92. That'd be pretty freaking cool.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, but make sure you join us for that final. And that gets underway. 12 o'clock Central European time, but don't go away. So thank you, Casey. We'll see you back for the final. Thank you for joining me, Andy Maddock, in the commentary box. We'll be straight into the women's K1 semi-final in just a few moments' time. Don't go away. I'll be back here in about 30 seconds.
Die ganze Video übrigens lustige Geschichte habe ich kennengelernt bei der Übertragung der Olympischen
So there's the provisional results from the men's C1 semi-final. The top 10 are through into the final. Alexander Slavkovsky of Slovakia will go off last in that final, but what a final we've got. And, well, let's just reflect there. Denis Canoe of France, the Olympic champion, still struggling to find his form and outside of the final. And Gregor Hedvig of Poland there, another paddler who has shown his form this year, but not quite on this occasion. So that men's C1 final will get underway 12 o'clock Central European time. But our focus now is going to be on the women's kayak semi-final. So myself, Andy Maddock, and I'm pleased to welcome Naomi Fox of the Australian team into the commentary box. A very warm welcome. A multiple junior and under-23 finalist, paddling in the kayak and the canoe event. So welcome, and looking forward to your insight into this competition.
It's meant to be a really good semi-final. We are missing a number of elite kayak women, so mainly the Brits, the three Brits, Luca Jones and also Ursa Krajelj from Slovenia. We'll see her, the up-and-coming little Slovenian star who made the semi-final, and Eva, who is also a medalist at the junior and under 23 world champions. So it's it's a good lineup, and it's a hot day out there. So it'll be a good race.
Well, it's the same format of racing, really. 30 boats in this semi-final, racing for just 10 places in the final. 2-minute intervals and racing in reverse order of the performance in the heats. So last off we have Ricarda Funk of Germany. She was the fastest. Then Jessica Fox of Australia will go off second to last. Of course, Jessica Fox is the reigning World Cup champion, lying fifth in the World Cup standings, and probably hasn't quite got her season. Had a bit of a slow start to the season, but very much getting in there. Other names to watch, well, Karina Kunler. She very much came back in the third World Cup of the season, took the win, and is leading the World Cup standings. So she will be a one to watch early on. But we are going to get underway with our first competitor, Monica Doria Villarubla of Andorra, who is one of those younger competitors you were talking about, Naomi, who is starting to make their mark. 18th at the Under-23 Worlds this year, and, well, capable of getting a place in the final.
Yeah, definitely, and she's really improved the past few years in C1 and kayak, and I'm really excited to see what she does at the World Championships this year, and hopefully she gets a quota for herself to go to Tokyo. That would be great.
Yeah, those Andorran paddlers, they're based at La Seu d'Urgell, which is the venue for the World Championships. So
yeah, so they sometimes take her under her wing when they go on World Cups, because it's most of the time it's just her or one other paddler. So she does train with them, and she's in the caddy club. So you can see that they all have a very similar style. Her and Nuria in C1, they do have a lot of mannerisms that are the same.
Well, she looks like she's setting a good pace on this first run. We won't really get an indication of her time until the bottom, but judging by the fact that the men's C1 were doing around 95 seconds, I would be anticipating a time of around about 104, maybe like that, for this women's kayak to win the semi-final. What are you thinking, Naomi?
No, I think they'll go under 104. Sometimes you can see that there's only a 6-second gap between the best and the kayak women, but it's hard to tell. It is very physical, and it's easy to lose your line, especially in these stopper moves. So, like Casey said before, he didn't see a C1m that had a flawless run, and it's hard to see flawless runs on these courses because it is so physical. But hopefully we do get under the 104 mark.
Well, that's, we'll have to wait and see, but you're right. I think we've certainly got paddlers of the calibre to even potentially break the 100 seconds, but that would require a flawless run.
Yeah.
So our first competitor, Monica Doria Villarubla, sets the pace to beat 108.63 total, and that includes a 2-second penalty. So next for the Netherlands, it is Martina Wegman, who had a great she made the final at the Tartan World Cup, finishing 6th at the last race. So she went into the summer recess very much on a high. Can she build on that into this as we get into the sharp end of racing in the 2019 international season? A month away from the World Championships, this is where it all starts to matter.
Yeah, so Martina's a really good paddler, and compared to most of the women on this field, she started relatively late, and she's improved so much over the last few years. And I think one of her major strengths is that she's so calm and collected. You'll never see her really grimace or stress out on the water, and I guess that's because she just runs some incredible waterfalls, and this is nothing for her. But yeah, she's improved a lot, and she's being coached by Telmo Elazabal. He's a Spanish paddler, and yeah, she's just a good person to be around. She sends off good vibes to just enjoy the paddling, and it's cool to see her do a good run.
I would agree. I think whenever I interact with her or watch her, she just looks like she's having fun, and ultimately that's what canoe slalom is about. And if you're in your comfort zone, if you're having fun, then that's where you'll find the strong performance. Well, she comes into the upstream gate 19. This is where the physical demands of the course really start to require a delivery from the arms.
And you can see that there's a bit of dead water through there, so you really have to reserve some strength to sprint at the end, and also try stay as relatively dry as possible until the finish beam.
Well, it's a 107.91. It's a clean run for Martina Wegman of the Netherlands, and into first place, I should say, ahead of Monica Doria Villarubla. And next up, it's the first of two Great Britain paddlers in this women's kayak semi-final. It's Nikita Setchell of Great Britain, 19-year-old who won the European Junior Championships last year, and then this year was 11th. 14th at the Under-23 World Championships, and I think 11th at the Under-23 European Championships this season.
Stay up, yeah. So with that little curl there, a lot of people will try to use that upstream edge like she used to kind of flick off, but she got a bit caught on her paddle.
You've almost got to have the upstream blade to go with it, and make sure you don't trip over.
So you might actually see some C1s do that a lot better, even the C1 women, just because they have that one blade and they're forced to use the upstream stroke. In kayak, like we just saw there, she can sometimes get caught with the blade and the pole, and gets a little bit messy, but...
Well, Nikita Setchell coming into the upstream gate 12 now. A 2-second penalty showing on the downstream gate 5. So she'll be down on the time of our current race leader, Martina Wegman. 4.4 seconds now, but hugely important race experience as well for these young developing athletes. So, Naomi, how important was it for you to get exposure to the senior scene in order to help you develop as a paddler?
Yeah, I think it's really important, and this year it's a great year to be on the British B team because they get a lot of the World Cups, so I'm sure they're so ecstatic about that. But obviously getting that experience and comparing yourself against the best, I'm lucky enough to do that most days. But yeah, it's an awesome experience.
Well, 109.08, that includes a 2-second penalty, so still tight.
So you can see there's a lot of time that she lost there, so we're going to look at a time that could be 4 seconds faster than what the current leading time is.
I think it's a good point. I think it shows just how wrong I probably am going to be. I reckon we might even go under 100 seconds.
Hopefully.
So we shall see. But next up, this is one of the athletes you were talking about from Slovenia, young up-and-coming athletes.
Eva's replaced Ursa because I think there was a shoulder injury before Tartan. So this is, a great experience for Eva to be able to do both this year because she's already on the senior team for C1. And she's a great little paddler. She attacks, and she was the world champion in kayaking in 2018 for the Junior Worlds, that is. And I remember her paddling so well. I think she had the equally fastest time as the under-23s, so she's got a lot of potential.
Very much so. Silver medalist this year at the Junior World Championships, so really showing that consistency as well. But Eva Alina Hočevar of Slovenia now coming into the middle section. Well, it's certainly warm here in Markkleeberg in Germany.
You can see her yellow helmet her dad used to wear, so there's a little bit of nostalgia in that as well.
So her dad was quite an established, accomplished C1 paddler, Simon Hochevar, on the circuit for a long time, both in slalom and river racing, from my memory.
So she's having a really good run. You can see that in the stopper moves, she's not edging or getting kicked off the wave. She's got a really good grip and she's pulling really hard. You can see her posture. She's giving everything into those strokes. So,
well, will it be enough to get into the race lead? Not quite, but respectable run for Eva Alina Hochevar and into third place for Slovenia. Still, Martina Wegman of the Netherlands leading in the early stages of this 30-boat women's K1 semi-final. Just 10 boats are up for grabs, and that women's K1 final will follow on from the men's C1 final at around about 12:40 Central European time. You can follow it live on Planet Canoe. It may be delayed for European audiences because it's also live on Eurosport 2.
So this is the second of 3 Dutch paddlers, so a lot of depth at the moment in the Netherlands for kayaking. Lena's a smooth, similar to Martina, I'd say, really doesn't gun it, but focuses on placement and then those good strokes to really grip the water. And she trains in Augsburg for most of the year and then goes back to the Netherlands in the cold months.
Well, that's one of the problems with the Netherlands is not a lot of white water, really, not a lot of hills. They did have a great facility that opened, Dutch Water Dreams, in around about 2007, but unfortunately that no longer functions. And yes, any names really from the Netherlands who have made it in this sport have generally been set themselves up in Augsburg or around, haven't they?
I think that's one of the great things about Europe. You can just relocate and find some closer white water, whereas in Australia you're quite isolated on the continent, so if you're not close to Penrith or Tasmania, it's hard to really get that whitewater experience.
And these days, having a facility such as Penrith or one of these artificial whitewater courses like here in Markkleeberg, it's so advantageous really to help your development.
So she's just a few seconds down, 1.87. So it's tight racing so far. Everyone's in a similar second, seeing as most of them have touches. But you can see at the end they're just so exhausted. It's very physical from start to finish. There's not really a moment on the course where you can kind of set yourself up and breathe.
Well, we are 5 boats down in this 30-boat semi-final, 25 to go, and next up for the Czech Republic, Veronika Vojtova, who's actually lying in third in the World Cup standings so far. So a bit of an indicator of her consistency, and that consistency has really come in race 2 and 3, 2 finals across those 2, a 7th place and a 5th place.
Yeah, it'll be hard to make a final with +4 penalties. Not sure if that will go through. We'll have to wait and see what she finishes with and also what all of the other competitors finish with. But that was a consecutive big bam boom,
so easy, isn't it, to make one mistake and then just lose that concentration, pick up another penalty, and then it's really hard to recover from that.
That's the sport as well. If you don't set up well in the first gate, you might be late in the second gate, and then it's just, the ball's rolling.
That's a good way of looking at it. Well, Veronika looks like she's recomposed herself as she comes in towards the upstream gate 15.
Yeah. She's a very strong paddler and also really fast in the ups. She just sweeps most of them, and I was in Prague a few weeks ago and she was training there on her home course, and she's just so fast, so I'm sure if nothing happens this week, then next week she'll show us all her skills and her speed, most importantly.
Yes, and so next week is the World Cup final in Prague, as you say, Naomi, and double points up for grabs, so it will be a well-contested race. All the big names will be there, and we'll really get to see who the form boats as we go into the Worlds. But into first place for Veronika Vojtova of the Czech Republic, and that just shows the kind of time, because that 106.16 includes 4 seconds of penalties.
Yeah, so raw time of 102. I think we can get to a 101 quite easily, hopefully clean. That would be a nice run to watch.
Well, here's a paddler who could start to challenge that 101 you talked about, Nina Verachnik of Austria, 4th at the Under-23 World Championships this year.
2017.
2017, you are dead right. She's a former Junior World Championship silver medalist, and she's always there or thereabouts in these competitions for making a place in the final. But there's a penalty at the top of the course that she could do without.
Yeah, so Nina has a lot of speed, and sometimes she can do some really fast runs. Now she's picked up a few penalties, and yeah.
So again, +4 showing. So that early advantage on the split would almost certainly be wiped out as she comes down the bend. This course, a very tight bend. Sometimes you get to see it when we have the drone camera angle. It's a very deep U-shaped course, artificial course. 18 tons of water per second pumped up into the start pool. Gravity does the rest, and it drops 5.2 meters over the course of the 270 meters in length.
So you can see she's hit 2 poles. She is quite a bouncy paddler. Her nose does pop out, and when she jumps, I think that's a big advantage, but sometimes when it's a bit more of a technical stagger, it can be a bit of a disadvantage because your bow might just pop up out of nowhere, and that does cause a lot of penalties. But
yeah, unfortunately now she's coming down to the bottom of the course, and the time showing that those penalties will hurt. Into 7th place for Nina Verachnik of Austria. So it's still Veronika Vojtova, the early leader for the Czech Republic. 106.16, and we're straight into the next competitor. Well, here's a big name, another Czech Republic paddler, Amelie Hilgertova, the European champion at senior level this year, but also won the Under-23 world title.
yeah, I think this is Amy's year. I mean, she's always been a really solid paddler since juniors. In 2013, she was junior world champion. That was her first year. Well, that was our first year on the field as well. She's just smooth, and she can just read the water so well. And she's really small. Like, you see her biceps. I mean, she doesn't look like she lifts or anything. She's just so smooth and technical, and she's got such a good feel for the water. And yeah, her parents were in the sport. They're the Hiko brand owners, so you can see she really reps that well.
Well, and you could see she was 2.12 seconds up, and that incorporated a 2-second penalty on the upstream gate 3. So Amelie really taking the charge.
Yeah, I think she lost she lost a bit of time in that the swervy area. She didn't really use the current. She kind of eddied out a little bit, and especially in that up, that's going to be quite costly.
Yeah, she picked up another penalty there as well.
Yeah.
So 6.67 seconds now a deficit. Just shows how cruel the sport. Casey and I were talking earlier that canoe slalom is a fantastic sport, and it can be very cruel as well. You can go
you
from
win
hero,
some, you lose a lot.
you can hero to zero very quickly sometimes.
Yeah,
but when you really find the groove, then it creates a fantastic feeling.
But like Vojtova, I think she'll show us what she has in store for next week, and then most importantly, probably the World Championships. So.
Yes, so it's probably not going to be a final, unfortunately, for Amelie Hilgertova of the Czech Republic. Into 7th place with still 22 paddlers to go in this semi-final. So not likely to be a finalist, but as you say, she'll be one to watch next weekend.
She'll be hungry for more next weekend.
The Czechs on their home water of Prague is always an exciting spectacle. You can join us live on Planet Canoe throughout the weekend, and the heats will be streamed as well on the Friday. But let's focus now on Jana Dukatova of Slovakia, world champion on Prague actually back in 2006. And wow, she's found some time at the top, 3.86 seconds, and it's great to see Jana. She's been steadily improving over the season as she returns to fitness after the birth of her child.
Yeah, she's one of those paddlers. Sometimes you can't really see the speed, and you wonder how she got that time, but it's just because she's so smooth and her long arms can really reach and grip the water, and so she goes quite fast. She does have a full-time job now being a mum, and I think that has impacted her training. You know, she said that she's tired, but it might also be a great downtime to have, you know, so...
Yeah, well, she's picked up a 2-second penalty, but now she is level with Veronika Vojtova of the Czech Republic on the split, really. And I know that for her, this season was more about building. She talked about the fact that she wants to get back into it, but her objective wasn't to be on top form. Well, she'd like to be, but she's realistic about that as she adapts to, as you say, her new life as a mum and being ready to deliver in 2020.
So we've only had one clean run so far, and that was from Martina. There's been an accumulation of +4 and +2s.
So Jana Dukatova of Slovakia into second place, and Veronika Vojtova still leading 106.16, but that included 4 seconds penalty. So we know that sooner or later someone will find that time and open up a big lead at the top of the leaderboard. So here is our next competitor, and it is another Slovak paddler, Eliska Mintalova, who has started to emerge at senior level.
Yeah,
She's a medalist at junior level, but really started to make it through. She was 10th at the Europeans this year.
Yeah, and I think she won the semis. If I remember, I'm not too sure, but she's definitely one that everyone's been like, oh wow, she's improved this year, and she's so strong. You can see that. I think she's probably the first one we've seen so far that really grunts and grips. The other ones have been more about placement and the smooth lines, and Eliska's style is more speed and, you know, just go for it, and you can see that head down charge.
Well, it seems to be working for her as well. She had a nearly 4.5 second advantage at the top, and it looks like, if anything, she could have extended that.
Yeah, so we'll see if she can keep it together. Getting a little bit caught through there. That stopper kind of either pushes you out completely, or sometimes it sucks you back in at the last moment.
So 4.63 the advantage. I think that might have been trimmed slightly on around about gate 15. Wasn't the smoothest, but Eliska certainly looking at taking the race lead here.
Yeah, I think she'll take it with a bit of a margin. She was quite dry, got a bit caught in the last stopper, but she's had a relatively smooth run, so it's going to be a big gap.
It's a clean run,
yeah.
And into first place. The advantage trimmed on the bottom section, but Eliska Mintalova takes first place for Slovakia, ahead of Veronika Vojtova of the Czech Republic and Jana Dukatova in third for Slovakia. And that takes us to the third of the way through this semi-final. 10 boats down, 20 still to go.
I think Eliska will probably be in the final with a solid clean run like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that might be around about the sort of cut-off time.
Yeah.
Well, next up, it's the third paddler from the Netherlands, Claudia Leenders, who, it's great to see the Netherlands having 3 boats in this competition, and actually 3 boats in the semi-final. And, it's a good start, but looks like a penalty picked up on that downstream gate, on gate 7.
Yeah, it's a bit of a fiddly move, and there are some options. You could either go a spin and then direct, or spin. With the C1s, their options are mostly set because of their the side that they paddle on. But with kayak, and also if you switch in C1, you have a few more options. So it gives a bit more variety in the race.
Well, Claudia seems to have kept the momentum on the boat. She still looks like she's got the rhythm, and only 1.39 down, so the times are starting to fall.
And Eliska Mintalova has been given +4, so she's no longer in the lead, and that time probably will not make the final now. So yet to have a clean 103.
Well, that's a good point, but it looks like it's low for Claudia a little bit on 19. Not too low, but can't afford to let the time slip away as she comes through the last gate. And this sprint finish, it almost looks like you have to paddle upstream.
Yeah, it looks like the current definitely is not helping you, and it isn't. Yesterday we finished on the right. The left looks a little bit more gross.
Well, into 8th place there for Claudia Leenders of the Netherlands. So yes, as you say, Naomi, the Veronika Vojtova is now a race leader because Liska Mintalova of Slovakia just had an extra 2-second penalty. Well, on course for the United States of America, it is now Evie Liebfarth, who's had an outstanding start to the 2019 season, her first season on the international stage. And, well, can she continue that momentum?
I think she can. She's got the biggest energy tank I know. She's focusing on speed so much, and that's where her advantage is, I think. Whereas most people kind of focus on setting up, she just goes for it, and she is massively closing the gap. I mean, this is her first year on the international scene, and she's already made so many finals and a medal, so she has a big future ahead, and even if she doesn't perform now, we know that she's definitely one to watch and a rising threat, that's for sure.
Well, it's really exciting to have another young talent coming up. As you say, first season, and actually, as you say, she won a medal in the C1 event in the third World Cup, Tartan.
Definitely, it's always refreshing, and I think for the senior paddlers, it will also make them improve massively when a young 15-year-old is nipping at their toes. So.
Yeah, and it's good. You know, the Olympics is going to Los Angeles in 2028, and always good to have someone from your home country to cheer for and make sure that the canoe slalom course is properly funded for those games.
Yeah, so she's a little bit behind, and that penalty is quite costly, but she slid out in a few areas, so you can see that even if it's a small mistake, it accumulates and it's quite costly.
Yeah, so unfortunately it looks like 9th place. That's probably not enough for a final today, but as we said, Evie has she's had an outstanding season, because even at junior level as well, she's medalled at the Junior Worlds. So yeah. Well, it's interesting. We've gone from a new upcomer to a legend of the sport, 2-time Olympic champion Elena Kališka of Slovakia now on course.
30 years difference in between those two. And that just goes to show how diverse our sport is, and I think that's such a great thing, because you get all shapes and sizes, all ages, and it's all about the skill and what you bring, and everyone learns from each other. So you don't get that in a lot of sports, and I think that's that's why people like it so much.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I think what I love about canoe slalom is just the openness. Yeah, at the end of the day, on the river you're competing fiercely, but actually everybody from all countries it's a family.
The lifestyle, yeah.
And the openness to share information and train together and all that kind of stuff. You don't get that in many sports.
This year might be a little bit different. Some teams are being a little bit secretive of their training patterns, and I think, in the lead up to Tokyo, in the lead up to an Olympiad, you realise that, they want to maintain their competitive advantage, because that's going to be the difference between a gold medal or an Olympic bronze medal. So.
Yeah, I think you're right, but equally within teams it's quite a challenge, because you go from being the 3 boats that are selected to suddenly you're actually competing against each other for just one spot at the games.
Yeah, and unfortunately I think that's one of the major disadvantages of our sport, because when you look in the 2000, or I'm not sure if it was 1996, when you had more than one boat, there was that real team and environment, and it's hard now, because when you see the Czechs and those 3 kayak men and only one is going to go, or the Slovaks 3 C1, you just think that's harsh.
Yeah, I would go further and say brutal, but I guess that's our sport. Yeah. So into 5th place for Elena Kališka of Slovakia, the double Olympic champion, and now Victoria Wolfart of Austria is on course, lying 6th in the standings so far. She was 7th at the last World Cup, made the final at the 2nd World Cup, and just outside that in the 1st World Cup of the season at Lee Valley. So consistently performing.
What I like about Vicky is that she's got the speed, but she also has got that technical and reading the water ability. So, she's a strong paddler. She had a touch on gate 3. She didn't really push her nose down and flew back up and hit the pole. But she's got a lot of stamina, so I think she can hold it together and maybe take the lead. We'll see what she has in store.
Well, now coming towards the halfway point. It's a bit sticky this section, but an opportunity to refocus into the bottom move. Well, she's certainly cutting it fine on 12. That's a good tight exit. Now she's got to use the water to get in tight into 15.
Yeah, so a bit low, and you can see it's hard to really get the boat moving again. But compared to being stuck in the stopper, that's not a massive time loss. So it's not ideal, but it's not a time loss.
So 106.16 is the current race lead time.
And that was probably the smoothest we've seen. She really did it on the on the left blade on that upstream stroke, and she just shot across. So I think she gained quite a bit of time there.
Well, let's see, 106.16 to take the race lead. It's going to be outside of that, but it's not going to be a lot outside. Into third place for Wolfhard of Austria. So the time's still staying higher than we perhaps would have expected at this stage. Veronika Vojtova of the Czech Republic, still our race
There's potential,
leader.
but we haven't reached.
As we get towards the halfway point in this women's K1 semi-final here at the ICF Canoe Slalom World Cup 4. It's race 4 of 5, final being next week in Prague in the Czech Republic. And, well, it is our next competitor, Klaudia Swolinska of Poland, who, well, she's fresh from the podium in the Under-23 World Championships. Silver medal she picked up there. So can she build on that momentum and get a place in the final? Good start to her run and clean through that tricky gate 7.
Yeah, I think she's probably one of my favourite paddlers. She's just got such a good grip, and you can see that she never really loses her composure. She must have great abs, I think. But yeah, she paddles really well, and she's got such a strong style. Maybe she can be our first leading clean run. I think she can.
I think she can. She's certainly attacking the course. She's cutting the lines nice on 12. Now this is a critical section. Using the water,
Yeah,
running
she did
into
that
15.
so well. That was the best section that we've seen so far.
So it looks like coming down the course. So far she's clean. Now she's got to negotiate gate 18, use the curl of the water into the final upstream gate 19.
Yeah, I got a tiny bit stuck, but yeah, that was really strong, and she just needs to sprint to the end. You can see that this section is actually where some people lose a few seconds, but she will be our first clean run under 104, so
And smashes
show.
it. 102.47. Klaudia Swolinska of Poland smashes it into the race lead, and surely that time is good enough for a place in the final. So we are at the halfway point in this women's kayak semi-final, and well, let's watch this paddler, the race, well, overall World Cup standings leader. She's a two-time world champion, and Karina Kühnle of Austria, you'd expect to put a quick time in here.
yeah, she's an engine, but she had a touch on gate 3 like Vicky, her teammate, with the paddle. So that's going to be a penalty. I'm sure we'll see a penalty or a few penalties in the final, but for now she's going to have to make up that time, and I think she can, definitely down the bottom.
Well, she's in touch on the early split, including that 2-second penalty, and she was 5th at the Olympic Games in Rio, and you know that Karina Kühnle, when she finds the line, is deadly fast, but consistency is probably still a little bit her weakness.
Yeah, well, we haven't seen one of those incredible Karina runs for a while. I can't remember, maybe recently, but I can't remember. But she does do it in sections and sometimes in quals when she just unleashes. I think naturally it can be hard to do it in finals when you have that added pressure, and you know, with the Olympic selection coming up, that's also equally as hard. With Vicky, I think they're two strong athletes that have a very different style, but respectively can go very fast.
Well, she's showing 4 seconds of penalties, so Karina needs to make sure she delivers the sprint at the bottom. Well, if anyone can, she can dig deep
Yeah.
and find that time, and she may even She's getting to the top 3, into second place with 4 seconds of penalties. So she's not quite under 100 seconds, 104.32, including 4 seconds of penalties. Karina Kundler of Austria into second place, and surely that is going to be good enough for a place in the final. Next up, for France, Marie-Zélia Lafont.
I love her little animation. It's great. It sums up her personality, so it's good to see that.
So Marie-Zélia, she represented France at the Rio 2016 Olympic Games, and is a World Cup winner, but again, another paddler who's taken an early touch on the upstream gate 3.
Yeah, so with that up, and I'm sure we'll see Ricarda do it because that's what she does really well. They go in really deep and then use the current to get back up, rather than, it's not an up that you really want to sweep and to high because the water doesn't help you. So I think here she's accumulated quite a bit, and it's quite bouncy. I don't think her timing strokes have been very good, because if you don't have solid timing strokes, that's when the bow can just kind of eject, and that's what's happened in 6 and 8. And
but even there,
she's not. You can see that she's not fully attacking it. Sometimes, when you see someone that's on an incredible run, you can see it in their eyes. And when you have +6, there's a natural part of you that kind of just finds it hard to keep going.
Yeah, you could just see she's not quite, almost she went out very attacking, didn't she? And then she picked up those penalties, and she seems to have lost that rhythm. She was low into the upstream, the third upstream on the course.
Yeah, I think one of the golden rules of slalom is not to accumulate, because you can get away with one mistake, but you can't get away with multiple mistakes, and that's what we've seen here.
Well, it looks like it's not going to be a final, unfortunately, for Marie-Zélia Lafont of France, as she comes towards the finish line into 14th place. And it is still Klaudia Smolinska of Poland leading the way. And we have 13 boats to go, by my reckoning, in this women's kayak semi-final.
And the first German.
The first of 3 Germans in this semi-final. And it is Elena Appel.
Yeah, Elena's a really good paddler. This is her first year on the senior team, and she's equally as good in the C1, but I haven't seen her paddle much in kayak, I think, because last year she was just in C1, so she's a really strong paddler and just nipped the bollards, but recovered really well from that. Hopefully didn't hurt too much. And she's opted for the spin, so for now you can't really tell which one is faster. They don't look that different, but I'm sure we'll see a few more directs, and I think it's because she was a little bit late that she didn't opt for the direct line.
Well, I'm really looking forward to how this unfolds, this semi-final, because I'm particularly looking forward to Jessica Fox against Ricarda Funk. Always a good rivalry, and seeing Ricarda on a really familiar course would be interesting to see where we get to. But focusing on this, Elena.
What? Oh no! See, she just got caught in the upstream stroke and
over the handlebars.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's almost you commit. You hope the boat will catch off the wave, and you commit your body weight, and suddenly it's over the handlebars. But great recovery, but it does mean the time is slipping away.
She'll be kicking herself though, because that's a move that she's done, I'm sure, a lot of times as a German, and they have selections here. So, but I guess sometimes those things happen.
So into 5th place. So it's not all over, but it's probably going to be a long wait now for Elena Appel of Germany to see whether that's enough for a place in the final. Yeah, this venue, you're right, the Germans use Augsburg here for their selection. Yeah. So next up for Great Britain, the second British paddler, Megan Hamer-Evans, 20-year-old, who has made finals.
Yeah, she's strong and she's fast. Oh, she must have nipped K1. We didn't really see that, but she's composed, and she's got really good grip. And in Krakow, she made the final, and She did a World Cup, I think, in Bratislava as well. So, yeah, again, an awesome year to be on the B team for the Brits. I'm sure they're really grateful for Mallory, Kim and Fiona for not racing.
And those British athletes, the top British athletes, will be racing in Prague and obviously for the World Championships.
Yeah, so we haven't seen them for a long time. It'll be nice to see them and get most of the top world ranking order back, I guess. I'm not sure if the Germans are doing Prague, but it's been a bit of a mixed bag this year, that's for sure.
Yeah, and that's because everyone's focusing on the World Championships and the Olympic qualification at those World Championships. And Megan Hamer-Evans is 4.4 seconds down. Just that penalty showing on gate 1. But,
yeah, you can see she's fighting a little bit, unlike Claudia, who was in advance. If you're on the back and if you're a little bit late, then it just gets into a horrible pattern of fighting the water as opposed to really being ahead and using it to set up for the next gate.
Yeah, and I did wonder whether she just sneaked gate 11, just touched it, and that is now confirmed. So into 13th place for Megan Hamer-Evans of Great Britain. And still Klaudia Swalinska leading the way for Poland. And it won't be long before we can start confirming who our finalists are here at the 2019 ICF Canoe Slalom World Cup 4. We're live from Markkleeberg in Germany. And, well, here is the winner of the last World Cup in Tarzen, Slovenia, Stephanie Horn of Italy. And didn't the Italians have a good competition at the third World Cup, I should say, of the season?
It's very impressive.
3 golds out of the 4 went to Italy.
So after Evie Leifert from America, I think Steffi Horn probably has the fastest paddle rate. She's really dynamic and super strong and just charges but uses the water really well.
So very experienced paddler. She's been to 2 Olympic Games, I think, certainly London and Rio. And certainly, as we said, she won the 3rd World Cup of the season. And is currently lying 7th in the standing. She was 10th at Lee Valley.
Yeah, she's on a really good run so far. She's been in and out of the ups and setting up nicely. And yeah, that was good as well. Fell off the back a little bit, but charged enough to not lose any time. I think this will be a very competitive time for our current leader.
Well, let's watch. This is where it's so critical.
Yeah, just fell off the back, and that, yeah, you can see that she lost a few seconds there.
So tempting, isn't it? You're a bit tired to lean on the blade a bit, and then you get washed away. You've got to keep the boat flat and not put too much edge on. But it won't cost her too much, and she's still very much in contention and into second place. So just behind Klaudia Swalinska of Poland, Stephanie Horn of Italy. Surely that will be good enough.
She lost the time. You can see her. Oh, that's the frustration look that we don't like. But
so we are now down to the final 10 in the women's kayak semi-final. They're the fastest 10 from yesterday's heats. But what it does mean is that as we go through the next boats, we will know who our qualifiers are. That final will be around about 12:40 Central European time, but join us at 12 o'clock because that's when the men's C1 starts and the women's K1 final will get underway straight after the men's C1 final. So on course it's Katarina Kuryova of the Czech Republic, who was world champion back in 2015, and she was a Rio Olympian, 10th at the Rio Games. Hasn't really shown her form since then that she's capable.
Yeah, I think she's been consistently in a few finals, World Cups and maybe World Champs, but she hasn't recently won since I think 2015.
She was so fast in 2015.
Yeah.
She was the form boat really, and she just hasn't. It'd be great to see if she rediscovers that. I guess she might show us a bit of that next weekend.
She's actually on a good run and gunning it more than usual, it looks like. I sometimes wonder how her plat doesn't annoy her or weigh her down, especially at the start. It was flapping quite a bit, so it doesn't annoy her. Hopefully it just doesn't hit any gates.
Well, she's up on the split a little bit, just having to spot the move there, 18 to 19, showing her experience, but keeping it clean. And, well, is this going to tie? I think it is.
Yeah,
Will
this
this
is a
challenge
solid
under
run.
100 seconds? Not quite, I think, but it may well take the race lead.
99.67, solid run, and yeah, she just went for it and stayed and held her line, and that's
Great.
all you want to do on this course.
Well done, Katarina Kudryova of the Czech Republic. Into the race lead, but most important, into the final. So Eva Tersel of Slovenia now. Again, another form boat who is lying second in the World Cup standings. And Eva is always supremely consistent. She's always there or thereabouts.
Yeah, she is very consistent. Oh, getting a little bit caught, but surfs the wave. Yeah, so that's a fine line. The entry and the exit on gate 3 is actually a little bit tricky, and I think what gets most people is that it's quite old school and they just don't want to do it old school. So they're fighting the water a little bit. So she lost a bit of time, but went for the direct and can hold that gap.
So I always think Eva is a little bit like Jana Dukatova in terms of being deceptively fast. She looks very
yeah, but you
precise.
can see a little bit more grunt, I think, here. But yeah, I can see where you're coming from.
So now into this these two upstreams, the upstream gate 12 and 15. If you get offline a little bit there, we see with Eva, then the time can slip away.
And time did. That was a second or two. And same here.
So 5 seconds down, that sounds pretty bad, but I think if she can make sure she doesn't open that up anymore, she's still in contention for a place in the final.
Sometimes you can't even see where you lost time. It's only when you put yourself in comparison to someone else. And that's when you can really see that they pulled a little bit extra and that made the difference. Or
Yeah, because
it's very technical.
working with the white water, if you can really get the white water to help you, then that's where you can find, sometimes getting the right kick off a wave can really make the difference. So into 5th place for Eva
So we
Tersel.
have our qualifiers now.
So yeah, Katarina Kudryova is now joined by Klaudia Zwolinska of Poland. Well done to those two. 8 boats still to go in this women's kayak semi-final here, live from Markkleeberg in Germany. And, Jasmin Schomburg is on course. World champion in 2009, from memory. Laseo de Hel, the last time they hosted the World Championships. And always there or thereabouts. Very powerful paddler, and is now another paddler who is paddling in 2 categories, kayak and the canoe.
Yeah, so she recently started C1. I think it was in 2017 that she started training, and I think once you're an experienced paddler you can pick it up really quickly, because what matters most is the feeling that you have on the water, and she definitely has that. So it will be either Jasmine or Karina in the finals.
So let's watch. It was half a second down on Katarina Kudryova, our race leader, on the early split, and this section here is where she will find the time if she manages it. Well, gate 12, superbly done.
Yeah, got the bow buried a little bit, so that's a lot of energy and a little bit of time. But she has a 4.65 second gap, and she could make that to get on to the final.
Yeah, so if she beats the time 104.32, she won't have to wait. She'll know she's straight into the final. And I think she's certainly looking like she's on track to paddle straight into a place in the final.
Oh, there's a deceptively long sprint, and I think it'll be really tight.
You're right.
Just behind.
Just behind. So she's well placed to make it into the final, but Karina Kuhnler takes that 3rd spot in the final for now for Austria. And Jasmin Schomburg into 4th place and sitting, waiting to see. She's next in line. As next up, we have the Olympic champion from Spain, Mayelen Chiro. And
she's a pocket rocket. She's so strong and so powerful, very dynamic. She probably hasn't had the season that she's been hoping for, but there's always the World Championships on a home course, and that's a massive advantage.
Yeah, and she just demolished the field at the Olympic Games in Rio, taking that title. And when she finds her form, then she's really on it. But she's left it open at the top, 3.5 down.
Because she looks to be really strong, and the boat's really flat, and you can see it's bouncing, so it's quite dry. I don't know where she lost that time.
It's interesting because she's also picked up a 2-second penalty, which I don't think would have been included in that split time. So she really does need to make sure she delivers the bottom section. She's certainly keeping it composed. Drops quite a lot into the hole, but on
it
track
might have been
for
a
15.
glitch because now she's only 0.81 behind. So she's definitely in the running, and I would love to see her in the final.
Yeah, I think we've got a really strong field here racing. Like you say, there's a couple of names missing, but it's certainly setting up to be a great final, and you can join us live on that final at 12 o'clock with the men's C1 final, and about 12:40 for the women's K1 final. So Mayelen Chirot of Spain into second place.
Yeah, lost a little bit of time on that stopper before the finish beam, so hopefully she fixes that line in the final. But great to see her happy with her performance as well.
So
the final.
6 boats still to go, and the 4 in is Canoe, Chirot, Zvolinska and Kunle, as we watch Camille Prigent of France, who is another paddler who really is making her name on the senior stage, having had some really strong performances at the junior and under 23 World Championship level.
Yeah, Camille's really strong, and she was the world champion, under 23 world champion last year, and she probably, well, I know she hasn't had the season that she's hoped so far. She hasn't yet made a World Cup final. Hopefully this is her race. If not, Prague, I know that she's a solid paddler on that course. She's kind of similar to Amy, you know, very composed, always flat boat, and really uses the water well. I think it must be a generation thing. Her parents taught her how to paddle, so she's always been around the sport, and you can see that she's really hungry to progress and really climb the ranks a little bit this year.
Yeah, she's a bit like you, really. She's from a paddling dynasty, isn't she?
Yeah.
The Prigent family in France, just like the Fox family, and huge experience, and the next generation.
Yeah, she's holding it together, and currently that gap that she has is enough to make it to the final. So honestly, she just needs to finish it off with no mistakes, and she will be in.
Oh, nice move there. Really kept the momentum on the boat from 18 to 19. Camille Prigent of France.
Yeah, this should make it.
Looking like she will be into the final and race again in that 10-boat final. And into 4th place, and yes,
she'll
that
be
is
so happy. Yeah,
great.
you can see.
Straight into the final. So at the moment, our qualifiers. Katerina Kudryova still leading for the Czech Republic, ahead of Mayelen Chirot of Spain, Klaudia Zvolinska of Poland, Camille Prigent of France, and then Karina Kunle of Austria with 5 to go. And next up, Brazil's Anna Chatila. So Anna won her first medal for Brazil at World Championship level in the C1 event in 2017. But
that was the classic Gate 3 touch.
Another paddler, getting the curse of Gate 3. I think there'll be a lot of learning there in the final that we wouldn't expect.
And you can see that the ones that went deep and used the water to get back up, I mean, that's the way to do it.
So she's in touch, really, considering she's got the 2-second penalty, 2.35 down. But Anna, she's very, very fast when she goes on track, but sometimes she takes risks, and when they go wrong, it can be very expensive.
Yeah, she is incredibly dynamic, and she's so focused. You can see it when she paddles, but she is known to cut the line sometimes, and sometimes it pays off, and then there have been cases where it's just been too tight.
Well, there's a good example of how she's really cutting the lines, ducking and diving, but it hasn't found her too much time. Sometimes, if you don't keep the boat running, you can duck and dive as much as you like, but you may not find it on the clock. But Anna Chatila still on track for a place in the final.
Well, so far the gap that she has is enough to make it, so if she sprints got a little bit caught there, but if she really guns it to the finish, she might make it, but time is definitely slipping
So
away.
Jasmine Schornberg sitting waiting to see if she's done enough. 1:04.48 is the time to beat for a straight place in the final. So, wow, Anna Statila will have to wait, but that's good news for Jasmine Schornberg of Germany, who is into the final. So now it's Stephanie Horn of Italy waiting to see. And Anna Statila has left the door quite wide open there. So our next challenger on course for France, Lucie Baudu, who, again, another paddler taking gate 1. That's
with straight in the middle with the nose.
she's going to need a repaint between runs.
So Lucy's a strong paddler, equally in kayak and C1. I'm not sure which one she prefers. But with the French, they're all at a very similar level. So it will be hard for their Olympic selection, I think, because they're all quite capable of going. And yeah, that option, I think a spin would have been faster because she could have kept the boat running. She killed all her speed through there, so...
Yeah, she had to work very hard, didn't she, to really force the bows round. But she does seem to have incorporated that 2-second penalty on the top of the course. She's just 0.42 down. But
she lost a bit of time there as well, kind of hesitating on the exit and staying on the one side. I think you just have to really gun it and try pick up as much boat speed as you can, because if you're on a course like this with no speed, it's just deadly.
Well, there's another penalty, I think. Yep, showing now on gate 14.
Yeah.
So Lucie Baudu of France up against it now, and certainly unlikely to go directly into the final. She might have to wait and see if she's done enough.
Yeah, it could have gone through with one touch, but like we were saying before, an accumulation of mistakes is quite hard, especially in the finals.
So 2 gates to go now, and the time to beat to go automatically into the final, 1:05.18. Well, she's going to be outside of that time. It's a case of whether she can get in contention still, and 18th, so not going to be a final for Lucie Baudu of France today. And at the moment, Camille Prigent, the only representative from France in that final. But good news for Stephanie Horn of Italy, who won the last World Cup race in Tarsen in Slovenia. She qualifies through into the final. So we have 3 boats to go in this women's kayak semi-final. We're live from Markkleeberg in Germany. And on course now we have Natalia Pasiewnik of Poland coming out of the upstream gate 4. Now Natalia, she's been on the circuit for quite a long time, and I always think she quietly gets on with her business, and she's actually, when she finds her form, she's right on it.
Yeah, she's I mean, you could say a discreet paddler in personality. You do have those ones that you do see more often than not, and she does. I think she's a little bit. She fluctuates in her results. Sometimes you see her in the final, sometimes you don't. But she definitely has the speed, and she got a bit caught through there on that stopper. She didn't jump correctly, and that is a lot of energy and a lot of time as well. And that touch on gate 7. So she has 6 seconds. If she's faster than the 6.14 gap that's currently there, she should. Yeah.
So she's outside of that, but she is. It's not outside totally. She's got to just deliver the bottom section. 2-time Olympian. She was 7th in London, 11th in Rio, and now this is the critical section. She's got to find some. Well, that's pretty good. 18 to 19 doesn't quite make the most of that exit.
Yeah, it's a little bit too tight.
Just slipping away here, and I suspect that will be good news for Anna Statila. So into 17th place for Natalia Pasiewnik of Poland, but that gives Anna Statila of Brazil a place in the final. So we really are lined up with some top boats in that final.
Yeah.
2 boats still to go, and next up it's the world number 1, Jessica Fox of Australia. Of course, well, I'll perhaps let you talk through about your sister if you like.
Yeah, well, oh gosh, we haven't seen an outside pole touch. She definitely had to go deep to do that. That's unfortunate, but if there's one person that can make up time, we know it's her. She does have a history of touching, gate 1, 2, and then coming out 3 or 4 seconds faster than anyone else, mainly in C1. But she hasn't had the season that she's wanted. Only 1 gold in C1. And I think that goes to show that in this type of sport, even if you're the best and even if you're world ranked number 1 and you've got multiple world championship titles, like that doesn't mean anything. You know, the next day is a new page, and
it doesn't respect any reputation, does it?
Yeah, I think she has the experience that is an incredible advantage, and she is so strong and reads the water really well and has this feeling that a lot of paddlers don't have. So she knows how to react in certain situations. That's a big advantage.
Well, she's absolutely on track for a place in the final. 2.23 seconds down on the race lead time, but if she can hold on to that, then that's comfortably into the final. A job done.
Yeah,
It's
got
sticky
a
on
little bit
19.
caught in there, but you could see her biceps really working to pull her out. And one of her other great strengths is she stays so composed, and so she didn't accumulate the mistakes, and she's going straight to the final. So she'll be satisfied with that no matter how many finals you've done. It's always, you can see the relief in her face.
Yeah, into 7th place. There'll be a little bit of reflection, looking at video between the runs, ready to come back firing on all cylinders in the final. But it's job done for Jessica Fox of Australia. And well done. We'll see you in the final. So 1 to go.
This is the one we've been waiting for, though. I think everyone's just waiting for this one.
So it's Eva Tersel of Slovenia sitting in 10th place ahead of Ricarda Funk of Germany.
See, like as predicted, nice and deep, and then use the flume, use the current, and
So Ricarda takes the touch on gate 4. She really was running the boat speed superbly well there, but just picked up a touch on the bow. But nicely through gate 7 and still has the advantage on the top section.
Yeah, she's got such a long stroke and really grips. Like, I just don't understand how she can grip and fly as much as she does, but she's so strong and fast, and one of her, I guess, her skills is that she always keeps the boat moving, and so even if you think, wow, that was really low, she's still very fast. You can see her long arms. I mean, she gets so much out of one stroke and out of one draw.
Yeah, she's not been off the podium in the World Cup this year. 2nd in Lee Valley, 3rd in Bratislava, the 2nd race. She didn't do the 3rd race, so very consistent start to the season.
Yeah, she won the last World Cup that was here in Leipzig, so she definitely knows this course really well and can perform extremely well under pressure.
Well, she was up at the 2nd split, and she looks very graceful, effortless on the bottom.
No weapon.
This is surely going to go under 100 seconds. Ricarda Funk of Germany takes the race lead.
And you can see there were mistakes in that run, so I really hope she just whips out an incredible run in the final.
Well, that has set us up for a great final, hasn't it? We've
Definitely.
got no real big surprises missing out on the final there. We've got a big, Stephanie Horn, Jessica Fox. We've got Ricarda Funk, Katarina Kudryova. We've got the Olympic champion, Mylan Charoux.
We've got 3 continents. That's always good. Australia, Brazil, and
here we have the provisional
Europeans.
results there. Ricarda Funk of Germany goes off last in the final for Germany, and of course, if it's the Olympic selection is still on, so the battle is still going. But if she finishes ahead of Jasmine Schornberg in the final, she is the Olympic boat for
there's
Germany.
added pressure now, so it will definitely be a good performance. Same thing with the C1 men, is that right?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
So there's like a battle within a battle. We've got a World Cup race here going on, but also the German team Olympic selection.
And that's just added pressure. So to perform and really show your strength in those conditions is testament to how strong of a paddler you are. So it will be a good battle out there in the finals.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that because there are lots of penalties in the semi-final. If people can clean that up, which I'm sure they will, then we are going to be in for a treat this afternoon. The men's C1 final will be live from 12 o'clock Central European time But for those people viewing in Europe, then it may be delayed till after the Eurosport live goes off air. But anyone outside of Europe, it will be live 12 o'clock Central European time, and closely followed by the women's K1 final. The action continues throughout the weekend here in Markkleeberg in Germany. We'll be racing again tomorrow morning with the women's C1 semi-finals and then the men's K1 semi-finals. They get underway 9 o'clock Central European time on Sunday. But stay with us. Of course, we've got the extreme slalom on Sunday afternoon. But in about 50 minutes time, we'll be back live with the men's C1 final and top names. And are we going to see Mikael Martikkan on top of the podium again after a gap of some years? And great to see him rediscovering his form. And who will come out top in the women's K1 battle? Will it be Ricarda Funk of Germany on her home course, or will Jessica Fox of Australia spoil the party?
Or will someone else spoil the party? Not sure. I mean, I know who I'm rooting for, but it's always an incredible competition to watch.
So yeah, Karina Kuhnle was in there as well, wasn't she? Because she had 4 seconds of penalties. She's got the pace. And of course the Olympic champion, Mayelen Chirot of Spain as well. But yeah, a number of big names there. You can never rule them out. But it is Ricarda Funk who takes the advantage into that final. So everyone taking a little bit of a break, 50 minutes time, ready for those finals. The course here in Leipzig, Germany, not one that is regularly on the circuit for training either, but a really popular one amongst the athletes. So from me, Andy Maddock, then it's goodbye for now, and a big thank you, Naomi Fox, for joining me in the commentary box
Thank you for having me.
talk us through. We'll be back in 50 minutes time for those finals. Men's C1 final, followed by the women's K1 final. We'll be back in a bit.